It's exciting because you have different transitions that always take place. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on in your family's life. But I had 3 unique stories that I wanted to share today I'm a big believer in storytelling. I'm a big believer that somebody's going to grab something from a story. Maybe 3 of them help you, 2 of them help you, 1 of them helps you. Maybe none of them helps you, and then you could just nod off for the next 20 minutes. We're going to make sure to meet with our marketing directors today. Awesome. But the first one was, I watched a documentary on Led Zeppelin, okay? And I'm a big fan of documentaries, and there's a lot that you could learn through the life and the success of other people, especially when they're being interviewed after the fact where they're not selling the records, okay? Because when you're selling the records, you still have an agenda to sell and push, and even to put on the face. But when you're like 70 years old, and you're telling the story when you were 20, it's like sometimes it's just like, yeah, here's where we were at and stuff. And I kind of like to see that because sometimes you want to get a glimpse into the future, even though it may not be your future, it could be your future. And you could learn from the mindset of when people are at certain spots. And there was something specific that when he said it, I thought about our business and I thought about our people. And because when you're in it and you're going through it, sometimes you're like, the faith gets tested, the focus gets tested, where am I going? What am I doing? Yeah. Am I doing the right things? Yeah. And then you catch yourself just doing things sometimes to do things, and you didn't even really want to do them, feel why you're doing them, but you do them, and then you just hope for something, and then sometimes you don't even have hope. Sometimes you just do the action and you go to bed feeling miserable, and sometimes you wake up fired up, but you really don't know what you're fired up about. And like you have this battle that's going on inside of you. I'm telling you, sometimes you're going to feel fired up, but you have no reason to be fired up. And then sometimes you're going to be depressed, but you have no reason to be depressed. And so like you really don't need neither one of them, but you're going through this process. And so I'm watching when this band is being introduced, okay, like 68, 69. This is 1968, 69. I mean, this is like Vietnam. This is like sending someone to the moon, This is like there's a lot going on. There's just a lot going on. And like music 10, 20 years earlier was very different than the type of music that was being introduced. And like when like Elvis came out, and like for those that don't know, like Led Zeppelin like overtook the Beatles for popularity in London. They were the one that they overtook the Beatles before Stairway to Heaven, okay? And I remember my mom graduated high school in 75, and she would always tell me, my high school class song was Stairway to Heaven. Wow. What the hell is yours?
Great song.
You know what I mean? And I was like, no, mine's like Vitamin C Graduation. You know what I mean? Like it's not, this isn't like very nice. But anyways, that's not the purpose for the message. The purpose is I know that they end up becoming the greatest, like one of the greatest bands of all time. And some say greatest drummer, John Bonham, greatest guitarist, Jimmy Page, greatest vocalist, Robert Plant. Like that's, I'm not saying maybe not number 1 all time, but they would be, for those that don't know music or don't know the band, these would be top 3 to 5 goats in every single position. And so sometimes I wonder, how did the band come together? Because you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and how did it come together? And it's the guitarist. This part's not for the message that's going to help your business. This is just laying some context. Because context matters when you hear the point of the message. And so the guitarist, Jimmy Page, he's like, I knew that I had something good. I just needed to play with some other people. You know what I mean? Like, and so first is like, he had confidence in his craft, but you still have to have a band in order to like make music. Yeah. You're not just gonna sit up there with the guitar by yourself, okay? You back then there wasn't very many solo artists. It was like you had to forge a band or form a band. And the things they had to do, like music at the lobbies of things, like sometimes you just had to be background music before you were like popular music. And by the way, at this time, AM radio is like everything. FM was introduced for like the other stuff. Yeah, like AM was it. Yeah. And so like back then you didn't play a band. You didn't play like a record. You didn't play a band. You didn't play a record all the way through. You would like have one song that was made. So like you made a song for a single to be put on a radio, but then they were like, I want to have the radio play all of our songs. Like this was revolutionary. Like that was the goal. Building the band was like, we're going to make something to where people can just listen instead of like one shot. And it's like, So we just take that stuff for granted. We're like, what? I don't even pay attention to that. Now we're back to one songs anyways. So they're making their band, and what I really loved was when they asked Robert Plant, the singer, because Jimmy Page, the guitarist, went to Robert Plant and he's like, I need a vocalist and I need someone powerful because I'm going to kill it on the guitar. And so now keep in mind, when you're building your team, he's building a bass shop. Okay. He's like, I need a drummer. I need somebody. And so Jimmy Page wrote down 2 names. He said, I want this guy to sing and I want this guy to play the drums. So he goes to the guy he wants to sing first, and he just signs with another record label and another band. So it's kind of like your target recruit lost him. Okay, like the one you wanted, gone. Okay, and he was like, man, discouraged. And then somebody else said, you need to hear this guy Robert Plant speak. Okay, and this guy's pretty crazy. And he goes, all right, let's go. That's another tip. Okay, the second you hear about somebody that could be for your team, you're in your car. You know what I mean? It's not like, well, let me follow up next week. That's not the way that it worked, because these guys join bands. And so they're in and out of bands constantly. And so he's like, let's go. And he goes and meets with them and he goes, man, you really got something special. Maybe we could do something together. And he goes, but I want to go get this drummer. And then he tells Robert Plant the name of a drummer that he wants to go get. And Robert Plant goes, look, there's no greater drummer than John Bonham. Okay, you need him, Taproot. And he goes, well, all right. So the singer he didn't want, okay, ends up being his singer. And the drummer he did wanted, the singer he got said, no, let's go get the one that I like. So he goes, well, all right, let's give that a shot. By the way, guys, these all become like the greatest at their, look up John Bonham, look up Jimmy Page, look up Robert Plant. These are like all the best. But the whole way that it came together was just like stumbling and bumbling and going fast, but started with the guitarist having belief. And so they asked the lead singer, Robert Plant, who I'm a big fan of. By the way, I'm in college. I have Led Zeppelin above my bed. Just letting you know. So I'm a little bit older. I mean, I'm younger than the stuff that I like a lot of times, an old soul or whatever you call it. So this was awesome. When they asked Robert Plant, they said, so like, what was it like getting started? And he said, to be honest with you, most of the time we were performing in the early stages, they didn't even like us. And I'd look at the crowd while I was singing, and I'm singing. If you listen to Robert Plant, he screams. I mean, he's screaming the whole time. He's not singing softly. And he's going. And they show original footage from the late 60s. And you see kids plugging their ears. Okay? They like kids were standing there. What if you were doing an appointment and they started plugging their ears? Like, could you imagine? Like, I imagine doing a presentation and the crowd starts going like this. And I'm like, could I keep going? You know, like, what would I say? Like, you think about people being judgmental. They had guys that were like going like this. They had moms that were like going like this. And the way they would watch music back then, they did it, there wasn't a lot of body movement. It was like you were at a play and you would like sit and observe, and your facial expression really said what you thought about the band. And you look at the crowd, and if I didn't know where they were going to be in the future, you'd think there's no way they'd even want to perform after that night. And then they did it again, and then they did it again, and they did it again. And they asked Robert Plant, why did you keep performing? Why do you keep performing? And he goes, you know, looking back at it, I don't think very many people liked us, but we liked us.
Yeah.
And since we liked us, we kept going. And we didn't know what would happen, but we liked what we were doing, and we didn't care about what they were thinking. And that's so easy to say when you know you're gonna win. It's so easy to say when you know how it's gonna end up. Like any one of you guys being brought up here and saying, and help me welcome our next 7-figure earner. You know what I mean? Like if that's your story, like fill in your name. Like next 7-figure earner, Marcus. You know, our next 7-figure earner, Ricky, or new office, senior vice president, promotion, hierarchy, you know, boom. And like, if you could imagine your name being said in there over and over and over again, just like Natalie was talking about visualization, and seeing something in the end. And it takes a lot of faith to walk forward, especially to get up in front of people and grab an instrument that's watching you. And they look at you like, please stop. And you just rock out like you're in your garage. You rock out like you're in your bathroom and nobody's listening to your singing. You know what I mean? And like, that's That's the type of energy you have to put forth. Yeah. By the way, flash forward 4 years after that, 4 years after that, these guys are beating the Beatles. Great. After that day. Not 14, not 40, 4. From nobody wants to hear us to everybody wants us. The first night Robert Plant goes to get a concert, he goes, babe, let's go get married. 20 years old, marries his girlfriend. Okay, 21 years old, I could be off on the age, goes and marries his girlfriend. And he's like, in the same day that I had my first big show, I got married, that day. And like that stuff, that's just crazy stuff out there. And they said, well, how were you doing? When they were performing, he goes, I was homeless. On the airplane on the way to the show, I'm sitting in the airplane and they give us food. And he goes like this, he goes, forks. More than I could steal. Up until this point, I was stealing silverware. Up until that flight, I was stealing silverware. He goes, they had so many forks, I didn't even need to steal them. They were just going to be there. And he goes, air conditioning, food, and people to talk to. It was over. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he's getting on his first flight to go do his first transatlantic, show, because they're from London. And they're coming to America. Yeah, Led Zeppelin's from London, guys. They're not American, okay? But he goes, the West Coast in the United States loved us. There was an underground movement taking place in there. And so think of it. They went to the market that received them. And then they ended up coming back home and being King Kongs where they weren't received in the beginning. Yeah. They needed to win somewhere else and then go back to their market. You know what I mean? Think of it, guys. Their market wasn't receiving them. They just went across the ocean and started performing where people liked them. Then they got popular. Then they got signed. Then they went back to the market that received them. And then the rest is history. They're the goats. And I think about that in our business. And I'm like, how many times do we have somebody that could be one of the greatest that quits because of what their mom says to them or their brother says to them? I mean, guys, they were going to entire shows. Oh, keep in mind, he was like, yeah, my parents, they weren't supportive of anything, nothing. I brought my girlfriend to their doorstep and said, I want you to meet your soon-to-be daughter-in-law. And he goes, and they had to meet her. You know what I mean? Like, meaning like wasn't interested in what they thought. Nobody asked what they thought. Nobody cared what they thought. They just did it and they had faith and then they came through. Powerful. Next story I want to share with you guys happened to me at the park last night with the girls. And it was interesting. It has to do with like accountability, taking ownership, and just kids being kids. But just like I say, when you watch National Geographic, you can learn a lot about like animals in the kingdom and nature and how we can behave or how we should behave. Yep. Okay. You can learn a lot from the way kids are in the playground. Okay. First of all, have you ever watched children in the playground? Has anybody ever done this? Okay. Has anybody watched more than one kid in the playground by yourself? Okay. Like you don't have two set. There's like you and then two, and they're all over the place. Okay. And so you're hawking it out, okay? Yeah. You're hawking it out. I mean, you look like a bird on the beach. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like your head is bam, 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 and I'm rocking, and I'm giving them a little bit of their space, and I don't want to overcrowd because I want them to develop, and but you don't want to undercrowd because you want to lose them. But I scared Natalie. I scared Natalie with this one last night. I was like, babe, it was crazy when a woman taps me on the shoulder and said, hey, your 2-year-old's over there. I just wanted you to know. And then Natalie's like, how did you and I just want you guys to know, I always will tell the story a little bit more like I was at just to like get Natalie's reaction, okay? Because Natalie will take it all the way to because she's the mom, right? Yeah. So anyways, I was like, it's fine, they're fine, nothing's gonna happen, and anyways, that's not part of it, but here's the story. So we're sitting, and they're standing there, and Jaden is 3, Genesis is 2, and the 3-year-old is standing there, and she's kind of watching some of the older girls to see if she wants to get after it. See, the younger kids, they go to bed earlier. Mm-hmm. I take them out there when the sun's setting and it's about to get dark because the kids are 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, okay? And then she's 3. This is how you're going to learn the world really fast, okay? These kids they're a little bit more reckless. They're running fast. And these 2 girls are probably 8 years old and they're busting it. There's these 2 Indian kids, not that it matters, okay? And so they're running fast. And Jaden's just staying there and the girls don't notice and they come around the bend. Boom! Lights out, right? Jaden's bam, man starts crying and everything. Get up, you're fine. You're fine. They didn't mean to do anything. Get up. And the girls are kind of scared. They don't really know what to do because now I'm there. And so you could tell they felt bad. They didn't mean anything. I don't have a problem when kids don't mean something. If something happens, it happens. And so they kind of retreat back to their parents. But then here comes a 5-year-old boy, okay? Like younger than the girls, but older than mine, okay? And then he comes walking over and he comes over and he's really proper. And he like puts his hands right here and he goes, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened. Even though I didn't do it, I'm sorry. Okay. Now I don't know. I never asked if it was a younger brother or if he just knew or if he just saw. Okay. Because that's not the point. That didn't matter. All right. I don't know why he felt the need to do that. I don't know if he felt bad. I don't know if the girls were scared to come say it. I don't know. And I don't need to know. All I know is that little kid, he came over and it was like, okay. And then he goes, what's your name? Okay. They end up playing together for the rest of the time and they found chalk and they drew a line around the entire park and they were determined to finish the line. But you know, the chalk, what? It runs out. And so they were like, and so the two kids, that wasn't Jaden's project. It was what him and his friend were working on prior to the hit. Okay. So they recruited her. All right. They recruited her. All right. They did. They really did. And they were probably 5 and 6 and she was 3. Genesis really never cared. She was swinging. She didn't care about the chalk as much. But Jaden, she sees that they were like a third or halfway through drawing this line. They were just drawing a line all the way around and they wanted the line to connect. Okay. But they ran out of chalk and they needed more chalk. And Jaden went and found more chalk from kids that were playing earlier. And she had them in her hand. And they were like, oh, man. You ever see kids that do that? Oh, man. And they like over dramatize because they see the way they say it in cartoons now. And then they said, we're all out of chalk. And then Jaden, she has this chalk in her hand like this. And I could see her, and she hates to share. She hates sharing. I'll tell you this, she hates sharing. And I'm watching, I'm like, I wonder if she's going to share this chalk. And she found chalk because she saw them playing with chalk. So she went and looked for the little pieces, and she had like 4 or 5 little pieces of chalk. Okay. And she was holding them like this. And I was just kind of like, wonder what she's going to do with this one. And they were like, oh man, we ran out of chalk. We need more chalk. And I was like, Jaden, what do you think about your chalk? She goes, I have some chalk. Would you like some chalk? And they were like, oh my God, Jaden, you're amazing. You're this. And Jaden was just like beaming. And she goes, no, I do it. Right? So now she's the one drawing the line. Okay. And she's determined to connect this thing. And she's got to find chalk and do this chalk. And the kids, they're rooting her on. And then even when she misses a little spot on the line, they're like, you got to go back here. You got to go back here. But now the 5 and 6-year-old, they're rooting for her the entire time. And she was just the pathetic little girl that got blasted by the sisters or whoever they were. Okay. But they get brought in. And so one, it's really more about the boy. It's really about the boy taking ownership. Taking accountability. And when you run a team and you run a business, you're going to have to apologize for things you didn't do. You're going to have to apologize because your job is to keep customers happy. Your job is to serve people, treat them right. Your job is to get that done. It's not to say you need to do it when you mess up. No, you got to apologize for anything. You ever find out that somebody's near your business or somebody doesn't like your product, you got to call. Watch this. I'm at jiu-jitsu. And the last one didn't go so well, right? And my daughter, she got a stomach ache, and sometimes maybe it's like constipation or something like that. But she's like, I'm not feeling good. I don't want to do this right now, okay? And so the whole day, I make her stay. Okay, so she's like, I don't want to go. She cries on the mat and everything like that. But the instructor said, sit her down at the corner of the mat and make sure that she could still be like present. Okay, like don't take her off, So I was like, that's cool. It's like keep her on the sideline. All right, and don't let her just leave the game. And so I was like, we're not leaving the game. Okay, but you could sit here in the corner and not participate if that's the case. All right, so we did that process. And I also learned that from the instructor. right? Because it was like, I'm glad that that's how you teach people, because I'm watching how you do things, because there's lessons to be learned about leadership everywhere you go. Right. You find a good restaurant manager, watch what they're doing. You find a good jujitsu instructor, watch what they're doing. You find somebody that could teach someone how to play a guitar that's frustrated, then watch what they're doing. And you could start learning and grabbing these tools. So that's a lesson. So like, she wanted to come all the way off the mat and sit with me, but I said, no, your butt has to be on the mat. Because if we're off the mat, we're off the field. And we can't ever be off the field. Not until it's over. Not until all the other kids are off, we don't get off the field. So she stays on the mat the entire time. And here's another lesson that stems from that. The jiu-jitsu place, the owner of it texts me, hey, I just wanted to do a goodwill visit and find out how everything's going. Now, what I know is this. I guarantee that person found out that my daughter had a bad class. Yeah. I guarantee it, okay? And that person isn't gonna let the dad just leave and not feel like something was done about having a bad class. Sure, you could say they're interested in money and they want me to stay and everything. They should, they're in business. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do. I wanna know that somebody else knows that I didn't have the best afternoon and somebody called me. Okay, now I told the person, hey, everything was fine. You guys didn't do anything. It was just a stomach ache on our end and everything. But the person said, feel free to call me or text me anytime. Anytime. If there's anything that we need to do better to give better service to your daughter and everything like that, let me know. And I don't even really have much feedback to give, other than I wanted to use that story to tell you guys how to improve your game sometimes as leaders. Sometimes you need to send a text message like that just says to your teammates, sometimes it's not, oh, you're a loser. Oh, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Oh, if you don't get numbers. Because I tell you this, when you're a hard-charging leader, people will regularly feel like you don't care unless they deliver numbers. Okay? And I know that kind of changes the vibration of the room a little bit because tomorrow's closeout. Okay? And I understand that very well. People sometimes don't feel like they're cared for unless they're performing. Okay? And although you can never relent in being capitalistic. You have to be capitalistic. You have to give love to the people that perform more than the people that don't. But that doesn't mean that you don't give love to the people that don't. Okay? You just have to give more everything else to the people that are winning, that are in the game and doing that stuff. And by the way, I've messed that up 100,000 times. Okay? So don't think that I'm here in a judgmental place. I've messed that up 1,000,000 times. But I wanted to make sure to tell that story because you might need to text message somebody today. You know, there may be somebody that needs a text today. Maybe you need to keep somebody on the mat that doesn't really feel like closing out. Maybe you need to go apologize for something you didn't do. Maybe you need to find some chalk. I don't know what you need to do with that, but I wanted to make sure to give that with you. And I'll close out the meeting today with this. And I'm going to read this one from my phone. This one was powerful. There's so much stuff going on around me right now in like God's moving in different ways. And this one has to do with spiritual. Okay. And I was just telling my wife the story this morning that this would happen. So maybe the last 5-6 nights, I just find myself staying up later. I don't know what it is. Like, I just got lots on my mind. I'm working on things. I'm being productive. And I don't know if you've ever been there before where you're sitting there and you don't know what to do. Have you ever been there before? Like, you just don't know what to do. You're like, I don't want to tell anybody, but I don't know what to do right now. Like, I'm here. I know I'm alive. It's very obvious that I am, but I don't know what to do right now. Like, should I read? Should I do this? Should I go work out? Should I do this? Should I text? Should I go and group me? Should I go on social media? Should I watch a movie? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? And I'm going through it, and I needed some answers on some things. And I was like, I'm excited about so many things, but I'm like, and I was like, and I go to prayer. Okay. Now I want you to know something, you guys. Many times in my life in this situation, I'm not going to prayer. Okay, so I'm not acting like this is my go-to for my entire life and I'm a wise sage. No, that's not the case. Many times I don't know what to do and I do the wrong thing. Okay, but I will do it 100 miles an hour. Okay, that's one thing I do believe in. If you're gonna mess up at full speed, right? Defensive end. Okay, so like you gotta mess up at full speed. So I've messed up at full speed so many times. And I've heard about it too afterwards. But this, you ever hear about it too? Not supposed to laugh, Davis. Okay, so I'm running it, I'm going, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna pray right now for the answers. Now, I've done some prayers, and I don't always know when these prayers, I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, sometimes I don't know if they're getting answered. Okay. Have you ever been in this spot too? Have you ever been in this spot where you're like, I really did pray. I just don't know if he heard me. I know. But then you go, no. He heard me. I don't know if he's going to do something about it right now. Because then you do the second one. You do like a little pump fake. You're like, no. You heard it. I just don't know if it matters today to get to that. On the to-do list, I don't know where I fall. I don't know what number I am. I might be here for a while. This one might take a while. So I'm like, I do it, and I don't have a long history in my life of getting prayers answered quickly. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm being taught faith. Maybe I'm being taught endurance. Maybe I'm being taught, I don't know. I don't know what I'm being taught. I could just speculate, but I have no idea. But I say, God, I need an answer on, and it was like Romans blank blank. And I was like, what? And in my head, I go, then have you ever heard something? And then you wonder, was that my head doing it? Yeah. Or was that an answer? You know what I mean? Because, and I don't know. And I'm looking for I need was that just me? But the fact that it was, and I don't even need to say what it was, but the fact that it was a chapter and a verse I had never read, it never had been on my mind. I was like, I wonder. And I'm like, it's like 1:00 in the morning, okay? And I'm like, guys, it was the freaking answer. And I was like, there's no way. They just can't be that clean. It can't be that easy. And then sometimes you actually get your prayers answered and you're like, no. And it's like, no. You got to stay the course, and you got to do that. And you got to keep working on this process. And here's why. I get in front of groups of people all day long, and I have no idea what they're going through. I could start a meeting and say, raise your hand if you're this, if you're this, if you're this, if you're this. Some people raise their hand for stuff. Some people hide it. The hearts you really need to penetrate, they're not raising their hand. Yep. And oftentimes people will raise their hand for a lesser issue to participate when they're really dealing with something worse than that issue. In fact, when your mentees go up to their mentors and they ask questions, this happens to me all the time. I hear people ask me questions that's not the real question. They ask me a question because they want to get off their guilty conscience sometimes that they sought a mentor or they went for their issue, but it wasn't the issue. They actually asked about another issue, got an answer, but they left unfulfilled. And I think about how many times we do that to God too. It's like we don't ask the real thing. Sometimes we say we kind of say nice prayers or things that makes us feel better or something that kind of soothes our soul. But I just encourage you guys this way. We're ending the quarter tomorrow, okay? And the second quarter is going to be epic. Oh, yeah. Okay? I do know this, all right? And when we go into this next quarter, I just want to receive you guys. I'm going to close out tonight's Phone Zone, your Leaders Run Phone Zone, tomorrow's BOM. I want to close out the month and the quarter, not just with numbers, but with your heart posture ready to receive blessings. Okay? And for you really ready to change your life. And I'm sincere about this. I don't need to know what you're going through, and I don't even need to know where you're going. I just know I'm a part of it somehow. Okay? And it doesn't matter what role I need to play. I'm totally fine just going and elbowing somebody real fast. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean physical elbow, although it could be. Okay? It's more of a reference of I might just be the one that sets the screen for you to dunk. Okay? I might just be the one that throws the lob. Maybe I'm the inbounds pass. Maybe I'm homeboy from UConn yesterday that just pulled up like it was nothing. And oh man, if you guys didn't see that one. And so that one was sweet. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Who's I don't know what he's talking about. Guys, on your break, type in UConn Duke. Duke was up. This isn't a story. Duke was up 19 points at the half. They're the number 1 seed. They're Duke. Now UConn's awesome. UConn is amazing. They're 3 Final Fours in the last 4 years. Great coach, all that other stuff. But this scrawny little freshman who was 0 for 4 in three-point land going to this shot. No, guys, there's 10 seconds left in the game. Duke is up and they have the ball. How do they turn it out the ball? They press them. They press them on full court press. And the point guard goes up, and it was one of the Boozer brothers, okay, and the lesser, and he went up to go pass, and they blocked the pass. They just jumped up and blocked the pass, and the ball is scrambling. There's 2 seconds left. Homeboy grabs it, just leans. Guys, he has to lean into the shot because it's so far out.